Shalom. Today, I would like to give you the history of the name Yahusha. There are a lot of people around the internet that are saying, do not say the name J-E-S-U-S. Do you know why? Because Jesus is not, and I say not Yahusha. Now, some people will say, I'm going to say Jesus whether you like it or not, but there is a little bit more than meets the eye, and that's what I would like to discuss today. Because unlike most people who study Hebrew, I actually know Hebrew in every single dialect that Jewish people speak around the world. So I would like to show you around the world how different people will say this name in Paleo Hebrew. Now, the first thing I want to say is that there's only a few people who actually can read this type of Hebrew lettering. The first and most prominent is the Samaritan population on Mount Gerizim. They are the people who can actually read this, and they have a different way of speaking Hebrew. For instance, in the Samaritan dialect, the chet is a silent letter, and you do not pronounce it. This is not how most of anybody else speaks Hebrew besides the Samaritans. So they have a specific way of speaking Hebrew. And the reason why I bring up that the Samaritans have this different way of speaking Hebrew is because this font that people are using for this name, quote unquote, Yahusha, is a Samaritan font. And the first and foremost thing I would like to tell you guys is that Samaritans, they do not believe in Jesus. So the first thing that you should notice is a little bit strange is we are using a Samaritan font, and we are talking about Jesus, who is not part of the Samaritan religion. Okay, so this is something that you should think is very strange. But let us continue. The second thing that you should think is strange is that without even explaining what these letters are, I automatically am assuming we are going to call this Yahusha. Now, most of you do not know one letter from the next. You don't know the difference between an Imale and a Holam Vav. So that being said, I could easily deceive you. But for those of you who know the modern Hebrew script, we're going to say Yah, and we're just going to spell this out. And if you know the modern Hebrew script, you're going to see that this is pronounced Yaho and Yehoshua. Okay, and you could put a Holam Vav. You could put a Shurik here or a Kibbutz. It does not matter. So the first thing you should notice is now that I put it in modern Hebrew script, if you know Hebrew, this should start to be more familiar. And automatically now you should know that this up here does not say Yahusha. It does not say this. What it actually says is, depending on your accent, if you are a Sephardic or Mizrahi Jew, you're going to say Yahoshua. If you are an Ashkenazi Jew, you're going to say Yahoyshua. So there's two ways to pronounce this Vav in the middle. I said it once and I'll repeat. You could either say Yehoshua, like most of the Jews around the world, or you could say Yehoyshua, like Chips Ahoy, make the oi sound, and that's going to be like the rest of the Jews around the world. But this is the thing that you may never, ever, ever do. You cannot say Yahushua, because then that makes you stupid. And you don't want to be stupid. You want to actually know Hebrew. So if you don't want to be stupid, you have to either pick one or the other pronunciation. You either had to say Yahoshua or Yahoyshua. Be like an Ashkenazi Jew or a Sephardic Jew, as is whatever you want. But do not be like a stupid, dumb idiot who says Yahusha, because there is no such thing as Yahusha. So that is that. Now, back to the Samaritans. As I already said, the Samaritans are the only people that are actually using this script in their synagogues. They're the only people using this script on their mezuzah boxes. And they're the only people that even read this script, besides a few people who maybe got a PhD from the Hebrew University and are specializing in Paleo Hebrew inscriptions. Besides that, nobody reads Paleo Hebrew letters. So if you are one of those Americans who thinks that you can read Paleo Hebrew letters and you are not a Samaritan and you don't have a PhD from the Hebrew University or something like that, you are probably mistaken. Yes, you are probably most definitely mistaken. Now, the other alternative is this. The other alternative is that we can go back and we can say the Jews are mistaken because the Jews have three different types of vowels. Okay, three different vowels. They have what's called a consonantal vav, which is a vav that makes a V sound. They have what's called a holem vav, which is an O sound, and they also have what is called a shurik, and that makes a U sound. So they have three different sounds. And the reason why we should accept the fact that Hebrew just has three different sounds for one vav is because Yemenite Jews, they actually are surrounded with Arabic-speaking influence. And in the Arabic-speaking influence, the Yemenite Jews will make a difference between a holem vav O and a shurik U. Okay, in Arabic, there is no distinction, but the Yemenite Jews actually make a distinction between these two vowels. Also, between an active and a passive verb, between hu shlach and ho shlach, if there is no distinction between the u and the o, you could not say hu shlach as hu shlach, ho shlach. Ho shlach would be the active, hu shlach the passive. You could not do this if Hebrew did not differentiate. So that's why Yemenite Jews still make a distinction, and Iraqi Jews still make a distinction. And the other thing we should mention is, well, what about these Samaritans? Because you could always say, well, the Samaritans, they have a lot of ooh. They have a lot of ooh. And so the Samaritans are probably the ones that have the whole thing right. So the Samaritans, if we go to Samaritan dialect Hebrew, they are going to not have anything to do with Jesus. Jesus is not in the Samaritan religion, and there's no Jesus. Okay, there's no Yahusha and there's no Jesus. There is none of the above. They don't even believe in anything past some of Joshua. So we don't have anything. It's gone. So we can either believe in the Samaritan version of Jesus, which is nothing. We can believe in the Hebrew version of Jesus, which is actually Yeshua. And there's actually a way to say this in Hebrew. You're going to say Yod, Shin, Vav, Ayin, and you're going to put Yeshua. We could say Yeshua, and that's the Hebrew word for Jesus. Or we could go on from the Hebrew to the Greek. We could do the Greek. And notice that this was on Jesus' cross. His name was Jesus. Okay? Jesus. And this was on the cross. And in Latin, this comes out as I-E-S-U-S. This again was on Jesus' cross in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. And this is Jesus, Jesus. And later scribes, they lengthened the J and they turned it into Jesus. So if you wanted to know if it was a transliteration, this is our transliteration. And if you wanted to know where in the world Yahusha comes from, the obvious conclusion is, Yahusha. It doesn't equal Jesus. And to be quite frank, Yahusha does not exist. It does not exist in Hebrew, whether you're an Ashkenazi Jew, a Sephardic Jew, a Samaritan Jew, whether you're an Iraqi Jew, a Yemenite Jew, a Mizrahi Jew, a New York Jew, or if you're a Reformed Jew, an Orthodox Jew, an ultra-Orthodox Jew, a Messianic Jew. You could even be studying Hebrew at a Protestant seminary, and you're never going to get Yahusha. So that is my short little spiel for how Yahusha does not exist. The only thing that actually exists in the Hebrew language is Yud, Shin, Vav, Ayin, pronounced Yeshua. and we can spell it out Yeshua. We could pronounce it as O Jesus. We could say Jesus, and we could say Jesus. These guys work. Again, that's Yeshua, Jesus, and Jesus. These guys work. This is Yeshua. This is an actual Hebrew name. And Yahusha, that is gibberish, okay? The Hebrew word is gibberish, or some people like to call it bullshit, okay? It is not a word, and that's what I ought to say. Thank you very much.